I thought it was a caravan, not an invasion, Mr. Producer. And I thought they were 900 miles away. They wouldn't be here till well into December. And I thought the president was doing this as a campaign shtick. Or a racist shtick. They're climbing our walls right now. Thousands are in Tijuana. The people in Tijuana have had enough already. The mayor of Tijuana has had enough. I don't think Latinos can be racist against Latinos, can they, Mr. Producer? Well, this is the situation. So I am waiting now for Jim Acosta. This was his lead question, ladies and gentlemen. I'm waiting for Jim Acosta to apologize to the American people, but that'll never happen. Because he's nuts. You know, they talk about the president being mentally ill. I think Jim Acosta is mentally ill. They talk about the president being a racist. Well, I think Acosta must be a bigot. They call the president Hitler. Well, what about Acosta? What about all the people on the left, in the media, in the Democrat Party, and all the rest? Well, you want to talk about the rules for the media? You know what the media is thinking about and talking about right now? I shouldn't say the media. I should say CNN. I should say CNN. Although much of the media follow suit with their stupid amicus briefs. I want you to hear this fat slob who goes by the name of Carl Bernstein. Now, Carl Bernstein was of the lounge act, Woodward and Bernstein. You may have seen them sort of tap dancing across the liberal stage. But Carl Bernstein really is a stupid man, and he kind of was hanging on Woodward's coattails in order to get that Watergate gig. And it's not like Woodward had to do a hell of a lot of work. It was the deputy FBI director that was feeding him the vast majority of the information on the criminal investigation. Anybody could be a reporter under those circumstances, but that's another issue. I want you to hear Carl Bernstein on CNN yesterday suggesting that the media should censor the president. And the media should determine what's news and edit what the president says by taping his press conferences and not running them live. Cut 6, go.
We need to start thinking of a different way to cover his press conferences and briefings. For instance, I don't think we should be taking them live all the time and just pasting them up on the air, because they're basically propagandist exercises, because they are overwhelmed by his dishonesty and lying. So how could we cover them differently? Maybe we should be there, edit, decide as reporters what is news, and after the press conference or briefing is over, then go with that story with clips.
This is a big deal, what he's saying. I know you're cringing in anger, but it is a big deal. It gives you insight into how fools like this think. He's a reporter, so-called, right? What is better news than a live event, a presidential press conference? But he's saying, no. Because the president is a propagandist and a liar, we in the media have to take the actual news of what he's saying and edit it and decide what is our view of the news with our liberal values, what our priorities are. You heard him say it effectively, didn't he? That's how they normally cover the news. So here we have one part of CNN going into federal court demanding that their guy needs a hard pass or it's a violation of freedom of the press. Then we have this other part of CNN that is saying, no, he should get a pass. We, after all, are self-proclaimed reporters, and we have a right to be wherever we want, whenever we want. However, we will also determine what is actual news. And because we despise this president, because we oppose this president, because the vast majority of us are Democrats and liberals or pretend independents, he's a liar. Did any one of these fools ever call Barack Obama a liar when he was lying through his teeth on health care and we all knew it? When he was lying through his teeth on immigration and we all knew it? In fact, the congressman stood up and accused him of it at one of his State of the Union addresses. In fact, one of the major tenets of being a progressive, a statist, is you must lie about things. free health care, free college, tax the rich. That'll take care of everything. It's a major tenet of progressivism and statism. They lie all the time about things that are impossible. Things that are impossible. And they lie all the time about people who are in their way. Oh, that guy's a racist, that's for sure. That guy's deplorable. That guy's stupid. Go ahead.
Treating the briefing or press conference as a campaign event, which they really are, and which we did in the campaign as well. We gave them all this free airtime on cable news especially. We need to start treating it like a news event. And look, in cable, we have websites. We can put up the total press conference on our website so that everybody has the chance to see it, or the briefing, and we ought to, and it's a matter of record, and we can be the place of record so everybody can see every word if they want it. But we need to start editing.
But not on cable, you see, folks. We have to edit, we have to censor, we have to rejigger, we have to change the whole thing. Now, what if the President of the United States took that position? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to have one camera in the press room. My camera. And we will record my press conference. And when it's over, we will edit it. And we will put the information out that we want to put out that we think is news. No, that's a First Amendment violation, freedom of the press. Did he not just say that's what he wants to do? But we're not the government, ladies and gentlemen. TV press conferences began under Dwight Eisenhower. That's exactly what he did. They recorded the press conference, they edited it, and they put out the clips that they thought were newsworthy. Because here's the point that I keep making. The purpose of a presidential news conference is not to entertain the media. The purpose of a presidential news conference is not to inform the media. The purpose of a presidential press conference is to inform the American people. What Bernstein is proposing will not inform the American people. It would be edited. Things would be censored. Just because he has determined as a liberal Democrat that the President of the United States is campaigning doesn't mean that his view should win the day for the entirety of the nation. Notice he doesn't say those things when Democrats are president. He had a hate on for Nixon. He had a hate on for Reagan. He had a hate on for both Bushes. He has a hate on for Trump. But he loved Obama, as did most of the media, and they still do. And Obama lied all the time. And so now they're talking about censoring the president, the free press, about censoring the president. This is why we as a nation, we as a people, this is our country. It's not Mr. Bernstein's to run. It's nobody's to run. It's ours. This is why we need to take a close look at what the media in this country are doing. Not for government interference. We are the true constitutionalists. We don't tinker with the Constitution. They do. We need to take a close look at the media in this country. What it is that they're doing. Because it is my position that they throw around freedom of the press and they attack Trump with it. Not because they really fear about freedom of the press. Are you kidding me? We got more knuckleheads in the media than we've ever had before, saying the dumbest things in the world. Nobody stops them. They've abandoned any so-called professional standards. They omit information. They bring in the biggest goofballs in Congress they could possibly think of. Professors you never heard of that call somebody racist or mentally ill. They bring in John Dean to talk about ethics, for God's sakes. Not like there's a problem with the media access to the American people in this country. We've never seen anything like this before. The problem is with the people that populate the media. Their ideology, their motivation, and their purpose. Whether the president's running for president or not is none of Mr. Bernstein's business. It's a presidential press conference. Nobody needs to show up if they don't want to. They're in court demanding that they be allowed to show up. But look what they're demanding. That they not only be allowed to show up, but they be allowed to censor and edit what takes place in that room. And they shouldn't cover, you see, the news conference from beginning to end. Pretty appalling. That's Bernstein. It gets worse. I'll be right back. Now, Brian Stelter went to Towson State. He was operating pretty much as a one-off in the basement, you know, sitting in his underwear, trying to grow a beard, but he's incapable of that, eating Cheetos and doing that sort of thing. And he got noticed by the New York Slimes. He was hired by the New York Slimes. And then he could get more money at CNN. Then he went to CNN. But he's always been what he's always will be. Truly a nobody. But there he is at CNN. This is supposed to be a reporter, okay? Cut 5, go.
So, Carl, you know, I sound like I'm at my wit's end. I don't know what to do in these situations where he's not just saying something that's untrue. Because it's one thing to say something that's untrue, and then we can tell the truth. He's rambling on in a nonsensical, unhinged way, and I'm not sure we should broadcast it on television anymore.
So that was the lead-in question to Bernstein. But I wanted you to get the Bernstein substance first. So listen to this little nobody, this little tyrant. Who's being fascistic now? Who's being fascistic now? So Trump is rambling in a nonsensical, unhinged way, and we shouldn't broadcast it, I don't think, anymore. All these little Napoleons. That's not freedom of the press, ladies and gentlemen. These are propaganda mills. Mr. Stelter, you're a propagandist. Bernstein's a propagandist, too. And the truth is, you're left-wing ideologues. You've managed to get reporting jobs. Bernstein's managed to get rich being an ideologue and a propagandist. They would never investigate a Democrat the way they investigated Nixon. They never did. And the treatment of Trump is way overboard. Way, way overboard. He's not unhinged. He's not nonsensical. You may not like the way he speaks or how he speaks. But if you want to see unhinged and nonsensical, look in the mirror. Look at what you people do day in and day out. Look at what you people say day in and day out. What kind of a network hires Sharpton to be a host, even on the weekend? Or for that matter, Brian Stelter. Brian Stelter was handed information related to FISA by me, by looking at published reports. And he's such a dug-in ideologue. And he's so nonsensical and unhinged. He said, I needed to prove that the media were correct. And I had said, I'm not reporting this. I'm pulling together what the media had said. But because it indicated that the prior administration was violating federal law, was abusing the FBI and the intelligence agencies like no other administration in modern American history, Mr. Stelter went in a defensive posture. He put a pot over his head and walked around the house in his basement, ignoring it all, and then attacking me. So, Mr. Stelter, Mr. Bernstein, both paid by CNN, rather than supporting freedom of the press, want to use fascistic tactics to shut down the president in the name of freedom of the press. That's exactly what they're doing. They have no idea what freedom of the press means. They can't even define the press. They can't define freedom. They don't know the history of the freedom of the press. They don't know what took place during the colonial periods, the pre-revolutionary period, the revolutionary period, the post-revolutionary period. They don't put context into anything. It's just like these idiot network reports I have to listen to on this program, where all they do is mouth the Democrat talking points about their latest pathetic lawsuit involving Matthew Whitaker. Suddenly, they've heard of the appointments clause. When I talked about it months ago, they ignored it. When I talked about it months ago in the context of Mueller, it was dismissed. When the Democrats bring a lawsuit and bring up the appointments clause in the context of Matthew Whitaker, all of a sudden it's national news. You get it? They are ideologically driven, and they cannot restrain themselves in quote-unquote reporting the quote-unquote news. You know what the big news is today? The country's going broke. Broker than broke. And that it's going to have consequences. And no amount of laws being passed, and no amount of tax increases, and no amount of redistribution of wealth can fix it. And what the hell is the Democrat Congress going to do about it in the House? Nothing. Well, that's not true. Make it worse. And Mitch McConnell, who gets this laudatory write-up in the Weekly Standard, W-E-A-K-L-Y, in the Weekly Standard, has done more to explode the federal debt than any majority leader in the history of this country. But they praise him for getting judges through. No! Let's praise Harry Reid for getting judges through. It was that idiot who started pushing the ball to get rid of the filibuster when it comes to the judiciary. I'll be right back. I'm going to read to you, Sarah Sanders, a list of requirements now, rules, that reporters must follow if they intend to receive and retain a hard pass. And I want you to listen to this. This is for grown adults who call themselves reporters. Number one, a journalist called upon to ask a question will ask a single question and then will yield the floor to other journalists. I hope Judge Kelly's following the bouncing ball here, because this is nothing more than a restatement of the process that used to be in place and understood to be in place. But now it has to be put in writing, you see, because Judge Kelly feels it needs to be put in writing. There needs to be due process, you know. Due process has nothing to do with this. But anyway, let's go on. Number two. At the discretion of the president or other White House official taking questions, a follow-up question or questions may be permitted, and where a follow-up has been allowed and asked, the questioner will then yield the floor. They have to put this in writing. Number three, yielding the floor includes, when applicable, physically surrendering the microphone to White House staff for use by the next questioner. You would think this is like a Monty Python skit, but it's not. Number four, failure to abide by any of the rules 1 through 3 may result in suspension or revocation of the journalist's hard pass. You happy, Judge? How stupid. This is TRO and everything else that'll likely follow. Sanders says, we've created these rules with a degree of regret. For years, members of the White House press corps have attended countless press events with the president and other officials without engaging in the behavior Mr. Acosta displayed at the November 7, 2018 press conference. We would have greatly preferred to continue hosting White House press conferences in reliance on a set of understood professional norms. And we believe the overwhelming majority of journalists covering the White House share that preference. But given the position taken by CNN and its slip and fall lawyers, that's right! We now feel obligated to replace previously shared practices with explicit rules. We are mindful that a more elaborate and comprehensive set of rules might need to be devised, including, for example, for journalist conduct in the open, non-press room areas inside and outside the White House, and for Air Force One. These clowns at CNN, this clown Acosta, and quite frankly, these lawyers who have beclowned themselves, do they realize what they've done? That they've opened Pandora's box? You want rules? Now you're going to get rules. All kinds of rules. Whereas before you could operate sort of in the ambiguous areas and so forth, now you're going to get rules. And if you don't follow the rules, you'll be alerted to the fact you're not following the rules, and then you'll be kicked out. Does that make you happy? No. So all the media out there with all the amicus briefs claiming this is a First Amendment issue, now you're getting your due process. How stupid are you people? Very. At this time, however, we decided not to frame such rules in the hope that professional journalistic norms will suffice to regulate conduct in those places. If unprofessional behavior occurs in those settings, or if a court should decide that explicit rules are required to regulate conduct there, we will be forced to reconsider this decision, and it goes on. Now, here's the thing, folks. There are people, clearly in the media, some in talk radio, who constantly are trashing the president, saying he overreaches, he only shoots himself in the foot, he does this, that, and most of the people who say this do not like this president. They're typically progressive statists, or never-Trumpers, or former never-Trumpers, or would-be never-Trumpers, or just generally don't like the president. Well, if you feel that the president's making mistake after mistake after mistake, you don't like the president, you never liked the president, you didn't vote for the president, why do you care? Well, I care about the country. No, you don't. This is all really about politics. It's not about the country. How much news anymore is about the country? May I ask you? How much news is about the country? What's the debt today? Does anybody know? No, because they don't report it. What actually occurred in that courthouse that I talked about last week? Do you know? No, you don't, because you don't have the transcript. What's actually happening with this parade? The invaders. Do you know? No, because many of the media outlets are doing everything they can that Bernstein talks about. Well, don't cover it live. We, the liberal ideologues who run the media, you'll run it through us. We'll edit the stuff. And by the way, did we tell you the president's Hitler, a racist, and a liar? Oh, yeah. But don't worry, we'll take care of the news side. So if the president is as bad as all these people say, why do they care? Why do they care? We'll be right back. What do Jake Tapper, Wolf Blitzer, Chris Cuomo, Allison Camerata, Don Lemon, Joe Scarborough, Mika Brzezinski, Chris Matthews, and Rachel Maddow all have in common other than being left-wing kooks? Not one of them has gone south of the border to determine the makeup of the parade. Not one of them has even gone to Tijuana. And yet all of them claim that when Trump talks about this, despite Trump being the president, getting intelligence from Homeland Security, getting intelligence from ICE and the Border Patrol, getting intelligence from our military, getting intelligence from the Mexican government that what's going on down there is not very pleasant, and that there may be hundreds of criminals and gang members and so forth. Every one of these people claim to be a reporter, or to be reporting, or to be analyzing the news. They're nowhere near the action. Nowhere near the action. Brian Stelter's not there. Carl Bernstein's not there. Yet they question the president, they attack the president, and they call him a racist. Who else hasn't been there and isn't there? Jim Acosta. I want to challenge you, Mr. President, on, excuse me, are you a reporter? No, I want to challenge you, sir, and in more ways than none, he's saying, isn't it true that you're a racist and a bigot? That pretty much was what he was asking. Hey, freedom of the press, let's all circle the wagons. Guy's a maniac. And yet that's exactly what's going on south of the border. In Tijuana, the officials there and the people there do not want these people in their community. Now, I know they're not white supremacists. I know they weren't raised in white privilege, because they're not white. They're Latinos. And how is it that Trump gets 30 to 33% of Latino vote and you wouldn't know it? Because Tapper and Blitzer and what are the other reindeer called? Anyway, Chris Cuomo, Scarborough, Brzezinski, and the rest of them don't go and talk to that 30 or 33%. Why is that? Yet they claim to know who they are and what they are.